Welcome to the PMP Exam Breakfast Club, where we chat about all things PMP over a hot, steaming cup of coffee or a mug of hot cocoa to unravel those mind-boggling, nerve-wracking questions that you sent to us at Praizion.com. And now, your hosts, Phil and Emily.
Hello there, welcome to the PMP Exam Breakfast Club. It's Phil and Emily here from Praizion Media. Thank you for joining us today. So Emily, what are we talking about today?
Well, we have information from some past test takers, and you and I both taken this PMP exam, but it's wonderful to get other people's opinions on what they recommend. And Fred is the first one on the list here.
Yeah, big shout out to Mr. Fred Woods from DC area. Works in government space. So Mr. Fred, we know you've been on this trajectory for quite a while. But one of the things that Fred did, Fred actually strategized his study. So he first of all thought, how do I do this? Let me look for some solutions online. He found the PMP Power Pack Premium, which is 6 months of study. And he says in an email to us, what I liked most about this package is the author is very helpful and responsive if you run into difficulty. And I'm not going to go on and on because my head might get a little bit too big, right, Emily? So, do you want to talk about his first lesson, lesson 1? What does he talk about in his first lesson learned?
He says that you have to have a plan, a strategy. Time management is what he called it, but not like the knowledge area of time management in the PMBOK, but rather your own use of time. Now, I've often recommended that people spend 100 hours studying.
What?
Yeah, that's a lot. And of course, that depends on your experience. And all these things, like reading the PMBOK, listening to podcasts, working, working through processes, all these count as 100 hours. But you also have to know yourself. Where are your strengths? Where are your weaknesses? How far away from really feeling comfortable in the content are you? And he put himself on a 6-month plan. You actually worked with him, right? Yeah, 6 months. It's amazing how it goes by really quick. But it seems like what Fred did, like you said, he knew himself and he knew that it just wouldn't work. He says here, so I worked it in whenever I could, playing the audio on the long 1-hour commutes to and from work, as well as playing the videos when working out in the morning. Oh dear. 3:30 in the morning was best for me. That's what? Overachiever.
Overachiever, definitely. He says about 40 days out, I started to put in some extra effort and did start to have days where everything became a mess, especially on the weekends when I would try to get a full day's worth in. And then the second lesson here, he says, don't focus so much on memorization. Would you agree with him there, Emily, about that?
Yeah, because he's saying more understand the logic. What are the process groups, the knowledge areas? How and when to actually apply the inputs, tools, and techniques and outputs. I mean, this is an exam that expects you to already know these so well that you can use critical thinking to answer questions. So if you stop your studying at just simply memorizing everything, you're doing yourself a disservice. Plus, the purpose of this exam really is to be a good project manager. And so by actually understanding the tools and the techniques, you're doing your career a favor also.
And that's true. So let's hold in there for a bit, Emily, because a lot of people say, the PMP exam is just a good resume builder. Well, I mean, it will be a resume builder if that's what you want it to be and all you want it to be. But if you look at it like you said, it's the opportunity to be a better PM by actually knowing this stuff and not just BSing your way through talking about any of these things, but really knowing what they are. So if you go for an interview and they ask you, what is the function of this? For example, a project charter, you're not just rattling off stuff in a PMBOK guide. You can actually tell them what exactly the purpose is. Not what it is, but what do you get from it. And I think that's one of the areas that people can develop further when they read a PMBOK guide. Instead of just cramming something and memorizing it, can you really relate it to something in the real world? Can you really explain why do we need it? Not just what it is.
Yeah, hooking it into your real world makes a major difference. There's different vocabulary words in the PMBOK than there are that a lot of project managers use on the job.
That's true.
So also being able to translate those and actually understanding them helps. Now, Fred said don't focus as much on memorizing the intricate details of the PMBOK, but he did say it's worth his while and everyone's while to memorize formulas. What are some of the names of the formulas that you cover?
Those formulas. So let's go mentally, Emily. So let's go from integration. So in integration, there's pretty much no formula. Scope, there's pretty much no formula. Time. So in time management, there's a lot of technicality in network diagrams, depending on the method you're using for network diagrams. If you're using the if you're using the zero method forward pass, there's a formula, or the zero method backward pass, or the one method forward pass. They're formulas, but I don't want to get bogged down by those because you would probably need something visual for our listeners to understand. But beyond the time management, going to cost. Oh dear, earn value, the formula for EV, the formula for CPI, SPI, SV, and CV, and the 4 EAC types. Is there any? VAC, variance at completion.
TCPI.
Oh dear, TCPI.
Yeah, so there's a lot in, actually it's the control costs process where there are a lot of formulas. You go from cost to quality, not so many there. The HR, there's one in communications.
Oh yeah, the number of channels formula.
N times N minus 1 divided by 2.
Right, which they could spin in a variety of ways, right?
Absolutely. And then really risk is the next one that has a formula, expected monetary value.
That's true. And I mean, knowing how that applies to decision trees, so I can see that Fred definitely did a lot of those. And he also talks about, one that we forgot in cost and time, 3-point estimates.
Oh, of course.
The so-called beta versus triangular 3-point estimating formula. So they were very important. And then, what's the spin-off from those formulas? The variance, isn't it? And what's the one that starts with?
The standard deviation.
Standard deviation,
as it's
exactly.
called. Yeah. You're giving your estimate and then knowing, give or take, this is how early or late I'll be on my deliverable.
Right.
We'll be on time, of course, because we're professional project managers. And then there are some formulas also in the procurement area.
Yeah.
So there is a great number of formulas to come across, and memorizing those is worthwhile, taking the time to practice them, because in my opinion, when you get this type of question, you can answer it very quickly.
True.
And you can make up time on this exam.
Right. His third lesson here, he says, obtain as many learning aids and materials as possible. And he talks about the Praizion PMP Power Pack Premium with access to the LMS is a great package. So the LMS, he means Learning Management System, with over 50 hours of video. But he says the audio materials are also effective and so on. So, one of the things Emily and I want to do, let's be upfront, listeners, we don't want you to just go crazy buying a whole bunch of things that you're not going to use.
Right.
We want you to buy stuff that is really of value to you, or use stuff that is of value, and maybe even make your own, right?
Oh, yeah. If you make your own, you're able to actually work the concepts through in a way that you will understand. And I think making your own also will help you when you sit down to take the exam. Didn't he say he was nervous right when, he almost, he felt stressed during the test, even though he took the 6 months to prepare for it. Not everybody takes 6 months to prepare for it. Back to knowing yourself. Some take longer, some take less time. But you're able to set up a study sheet. You can jot down your notes before you start the exam. And so if you do make your own learning aids while you're studying, then you can very quickly jot down your notes and make you feel more confident while you're in the exam.
That's true. One of his lessons here, he says, try to understand any process pattern sooner. For example, work performance data to work performance information to work performance reports. And I just call that low-hanging fruit. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit that if you're able to just understand, the blanket statement, work performance data comes from here and it goes into everywhere in controlling, except those processes and integration and stuff like that. I think it could help, like he's saying. He says take as many mock exams as possible. So, like you said, he was still nervous, though, even though he had taken our 4-hour mock. I don't think you can really take enough mocks to not be a little bit jittery on the real deal, right?
Yeah, especially because a lot of people don't take tests on the job all that often.
Sure.
And I recommend that all people take a deep breath when they sit in that testing center and just know every single person feels the same way when they sit down for that exam, and they're not doing anything wrong if they feel jittery. They don't need to second guess themselves.
Yes, it's okay. And you know, the more of these mock exams you do before you face the real one, the more you'll be able to master your emotions and how you feel. It will never be to the point that you don't feel anything, but the more you do it, the better. And you know, looking at Fred's performance, and don't worry, Fred, we know you're listening, so we're not going to share your performance, even though it was great, on our mock exams and our mock tests. But one of the things I noticed about Fred was he was very dogged. He would take a quiz and he would try to outdo himself the next time and the next time. And I saw him pound on these mock exams so many times. I'm like, my goodness, this guy has got what it takes. I mean, he's definitely going to come out being one of our PMP champions, and he did. Number 7 here says, remember your goals are achievable when you put the effort and time into it. Remember, whatever the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve, said Napoleon Hill. And that's a really great quote. A lot of people, they're already defeated by the time they get into the exam. They're like, I don't know if I did a good job, and they start second guessing themselves. You know, do you have any confidence building tips you can give to the listeners?
Well, if you're going to take the PMP exam, it means that you have experience, that you are good at your job, and that you probably have the support of a supervisor of some type that believes in you. So take that to heart, believe in yourself, but also don't just do it because you have to do it for work, because you have to meet that checkbox. Look at this as an opportunity to actually learn and grow more. And then plus, once you get that PMP certification, you don't ever have to recertify. You never have to go through that 4-hour exam again.
That's true. Yeah. Keep up those PDUs, folks. Well, that's it for the Breakfast Club today on the PMP exam. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you've got any questions or comments or concerns or anything you want us to chat about on this show, send them in to info@praizion.com. So from me, it's bye for now. And from Emily,
thanks. Bye, guys.
Contact info@praizion.com at 480-545-2022.